Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the show. We are getting ready to kick off another week. So excited for this week. I am on vacation starting on Friday, so I'm going to get caught up on all the stuff that I need to get done, writing book two, setting up shows, and all that good stuff. Next month is pretty much full, so if anybody wants to get on, please message me. We have 2 days left at the end of the month, and that will finish off next month, so I'll get in the promo for that set up soon. So we're going to run through the sponsors real quick and bring out our guests for tonight. So we have Hazzum Studios. Or, I'm sorry, Hazzum Productions. Wow, brain fart today. We got Hazzum Productions. Check out Rodney and Tina Fike and their projects Roadkill Rampage, Pitter Patter, Peanut Pudding and Jelly. Pitter Patter 2 just funded on Kickstarter. Roadkill Rampage will be coming out in a few months. Check out 183 Degree Studio with Alfred Trujillo, Doobie Doobie Doo, and Miss AZ Power Girl, Kara Nicole. Check out their website. You can get some original art from Alfred as well as Fire Bitch and some of the other projects that we'll be seeing here before too long. We have Naughty Fairies. Check out Naughty Fairies with Miss Wendy Steen Shaner. There's a link above for her Etsy page where you can get caught up on all of her Naughty Fairy goodness, as well as some of the cosplay covers that are available from AZ Power Girl and some other pretty cool stuff. Hopefully, we'll be seeing something before too long that Wendy's been working on in the background. So we also have Codex Entertainment LLC with Luis Torres. Check out Whispers in Necropolis, Lily the Demoness, and Ace and Starlet, as well as Nebula Pearl. He will have a new project coming out this fall with VRXOXO, which once he gets the link for that, I will be popping that in the description so you can follow that. We also have Outpost 426 Studios with CB Zane and Michael Shoemaker. Check out Scorpiana 3, which is live now. So you can get the link in the description for that. Scorpiana 3, as well as the Mighty Might, which just funded here a few months ago. You can check out the other project, Into the Suck. There'll be a new story arc that'll be starting soon. The last story arc just ended. And the new project that'll be coming from CB Zane, Black Rabbit. And last but not least, our final two sponsors are Lisa Melone with Melone Management. Do you have a crowdfunding project, whether it's a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo that you need help with while you keep cranking out your project? Hit up Lisa Melone. You can get a free 1-hour consultation with her. She can let you know what her services are. She can do the sharing. She can find the stretch goals for you while you continue finishing your project so you can get it out to your fans as soon as possible. And DPopp Customz. Check out DPopp Customz. You have a print that needs dusting off. You want to get it out of the closet or out of that box that you put away so long ago and show it off in all its glory. Hit up DPopp Custom. He can make a custom frame for you that lights up, plays to music, and all kinds of good stuff. So with that being said, we're going to bring out our guest for the night. We have Joseph. I always mess up your last name. It's Duis, correct? Okay, why are you... There you are.
Yeah, Duis, yeah.
Duis. That's it. I'm fired. I should have asked you that before the show. My brain's not working today. So we've got Andre Osh in the house. What's up, Andre? Hey, Tina. Speaking of Hazzum Productions, hope you're doing well tonight. So here we are. We're on the last book of the story arc. For I think I had you on for book one. I don't remember if we were able to have you on for book two or not.
Yeah, we just had just for one, yeah.
Just for one. So
Yeah.
it's been a while since we've chatted. I know we had some really cool scenes. One of my favorite things that I remember about our first conversation is in book one, we had gone through and looked at some of the art, and Dracula has that traditional form that he takes of a bat, but you had him taking the form of a cat.
Yeah.
And
right,
it's one of those things that just sticks in your mind.
Yeah, he never turns into a bat. He never sucks anybody's blood. He goes out during the day. He turns invisible at one point. The one of the things we went with is that within the context of the world, he actually worked with Bram Stoker to create this sort of work of disinformation called Dracula. And so when it came out, everybody thought this is what his powers and vulnerabilities are. Some of them are true, some of them are not. So he really is really big about image making.
Yeah, which is great. You got people out there, hunting bats, and they got cats in their house, and like little do they know, like any of them could be vampires or Dracula or something like that, all because of disinformation. I mean, we don't have any of that in our current world at all.
Yeah, no, none at all.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
What's going on, Grant? Thanks for popping in. Uh, so I want to, kind of get started again, like usual, in the regular fashion. We can come back and chat about the book a little bit later on, but I'd like to, get to the bottom of letting everybody know who you are, how you got into the comic scene, and what some of your inspirations were, and why you're so interested in Lawrence of Arabia and in the whole, lore of vampires and stuff like that.
Yeah. So pretty much the inspiration for this came from we did a comic called The Order of Dracula, and the inspiration for that was I was watching some of these Hammer movies, and there's one called Scars of Dracula where the uh, the henchman is being tortured, and like that's why he's allied with Dracula. And then I was thinking about the original novel, and you had Renfield who was insane and ate bugs and stuff, and then you had then you had this guy. I think his name was Klaus in the Hammer movies, where he's just like being tortured to help Dracula, and you always kind of wonder like why is Dracula make alliances with these living people? Like why isn't this either turn them into vampires or like he could hypnotize them? Um, but the way that it's done, they always take agency from these people, and they're always just kind of like doing it against their free will. So my idea was to kind of take one of these living characters and make him have an alliance with Dracula for political reasons. And because I figure like there's really no better motivation than ideology, and whether it's religious or political. So we made this comic called Order of Dracula, where there's an Irish separatist named James Fitzharris, and it takes place in 1900. And he helps Dracula lure some tourists to their deaths as part of a loyalty test. And we really show that he's really just as Machiavellian as Dracula, and he even took part in planning the whole thing. And so then after that was over, I kind of realized like it was just supposed to be a one shot, but at the end, like neither Dracula nor Fitzharris really made any progress toward their goal. So I decided I would do continue the story, and so I did research for a couple years, and I made the Crusade of Dracula, and that's where in 1916 Dracula calls Fitzharris to help him to accomplish his goal, which is the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. So we sort of show that these undead characters have matured intellectually, but not emotionally. So they can learn new things, but they never really get over what happened during their lives. And so Dracula was always sort of an enemy of the Ottomans, and for hundreds of years he has I see John there. For hundreds of years he's been trying to collapse the empire, and he set all kinds of dominoes in place. But unfortunately, he finds out that there's another supernatural being on the side of the Ottomans called the Radiant One, who foils his plans. So then he brings back Fitzharris and a couple other allies, and they're embarking on this intel gathering mission to try to figure out who the Radiant One is, so they can figure out what its weaknesses are. And that's pretty much the first two chapters. In the third chapter, they go to confront the Radiant One, but unfortunately, all of these characters have their own motivations. They're all allied for, sort of quid pro quo reasons, and they're not all loyal to each other. So everything kind of comes to a head at the end, and everybody is betraying everybody else, and they're not exactly focused on their mission. So.
Awesome. So, is comic books, always your intention? That's what you wanted to do when you got older, or is this something that you kind of detoured and you came back to?
Yeah, I think comic books is something I always wanted to do. Um, I thought about doing comic books, and then I was like, why don't I just do short stories instead? Because maybe that's going to be easier to break into. I tried doing that; that wasn't successful. So I was like, let's just go back to comic books. This is what I'm going to do anyway. If I'm not going to succeed, I may as well enjoy doing it. So I'll just do comic books. So I finally decided I'll just go ahead and publish my own stuff. And yeah, I tried submitting things, but that's not a way forward today.
So John asked why the oversized 3 issue series, why not 5 to 6 issues?
Or an OGN. I actually wanted to do it as like one book, but it was too long, and I didn't think I was going to be able to fund it all at once. And then I was looking at it, and the story is kind of a meta narrative in that we have Scheherazade, who is the narrator of the Arabian Nights. She makes alliance with Dracula. So, part of the story is Dracula telling what happened to him in the 15th century. And then we have a bunch of references to the story being a story within a story, kind of setting up the framework of Arabian Nights, where you frequently had nested stories and nested storytellers. So I thought about, should I do 4 issues? But I really looked at it, and I thought that doing 3 was the best bet, because it sort of made sense in terms of the meta narrative, where there was a beginning chapter, and the first chapter is pretty much just them setting things up. The second chapter is pretty much the meat of figuring out who the Radiant One is, and then the third chapter is them confronting the Radiant One and each other. So I figure, we have this. It's really sort of a clear-cut 3-part story. They're not equal sizes. The first one is a little longer, and the second one's a little longer than the third one. But they're as far as the story beats go, like it's pretty clearly like a 3-act story. Because in the third act, we set up questions in the first 2, and they're all resolved in the third one. We set up sort of the premise in the first one, and that sort of plays out in the second one. We set up cliffhangers at the end of the first and second ones that kind of lead into the next one. So that's why I decided to do 3, and I also figured 3 was sort of doable in terms of funding it, because it's black and white, and it's a little bit cheaper to print it, and a little bit cheaper since I have to pay for colors and all that. So we were able to do 44 for the first one, and 36 for the second 2.
Well, and I like that. I like that about, because, I love the classic black and white horror. I mean, come on. I mean, what's better than, some good old giant special Vampirella with the black and white horror stories in it. I'm a huge fan of it. I really am. I love the black and white and the grayscale art in these. And so, when Belial, came out, and they're like, oh, well, we know it's not color, and I always hear people say that, well, it's not color, so it's not. I love it. And with yours being kind of a horror story and taking place in the past, those 2 things really shine with you doing, the black and white, because it's old time storytelling, like you said, the 15th century. And then you get in, to the horror aspect. When I think back to horror movies, I think of the black and white, Dracula films, and the black and white, Frankenstein. And, it's true to the time period of the people that are going to be interested in that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. I've actually been reading some of those old black and white 70s horror magazines, and I didn't actually realize this, but the reason they were released as magazines and had stuff like, like film reviews and behind the scenes stuff about films and letter columns, and and even though it was pretty much a comic book, the reason they were called magazines is because they didn't have to follow the comics code, and it was all like some elaborate shell game, which I think is great. But yeah, I'm actually going to make something that's kind of similar to those old magazine formats when we do our next Two-Eyed Tales comic. So.
Oh, there it goes. My computer crashed again. My internet's. Eventually, everyone, we're gonna show off a little bit of art. For those of you that haven't seen Crusade of Dracula, we're gonna show off some of the art of it. I was getting ready to pull it up, but my Wi-Fi is going crazy, so we'll just keep chatting about fun stuff. So The other thing that I wanted to say too is, I like the fact that you did it in three instead of doing five or six, or doing it all as one collection. Is it breaks it up. It gives you something to be excited about, but then again, you get these bites that are enough to chew, but enough to keep you interested in the story. There's nothing worse than having somebody drag out a 3 or 4 book issue into 12 issues and like, all right, we're going to do another arc. And you're just like,
Yeah.
oh my God, are we going to do like another 12 issue series that we could have tied up in 3 or 4 books? So I really do. I appreciate the fact that, you have the cliffhangers at the end. It sets you up for the next book. And then it's like, when you finish the second book that, the third book's going to be it. And it leaves you wanting more, but it's like, so that was one of the other things I wanted to talk about. Are you going to, continue a different arc with the Crusade of Dracula series? Are you going to try dabbling in something different for your next book?
Yeah, our next few books are going to be not related. But yeah, eventually we'll get back to the kind of world and the characters. But I think it's better, especially because this series involves a lot of research, is to treat it more like a TV miniseries or a movie, and just kind of say this is a sequel to the previous one and it's standalone without doing like an ongoing series. Um, because we always sort of base it around historical events, and it's a lot of research and it takes a long time, and but definitely we wrote this as all a story, and it was all edited as all one story. So if you go back after reading the third one and you read all three together, you're going to find stuff that you missed the first time, which I think is pretty cool.
So I just wanted to kind of scroll through here for my internet crapped out, so not everything loaded. As you can see here, some of the stuff's missing, but we can show off some of the black and white art in there. There's a lot of detail. I mean, you can look at the detail in the doors on here and see, the fine craftsmanship detail instead of just drawing the doors, and shading it in. There's a lot of details, and that was one of the things we had talked about in the first book, as there was the town, there was the village, there was just so much detail put into that one scene. It was insane.
Yeah, the almost the entire of book three takes place in Dolmabahce Palace, which was one of the old Ottoman imperial palaces in Istanbul, and it's still there, and it's a tourist attraction now. And I found a website that has a 3D virtual tour, so you can go through it and you can look at it from all types of angles, and most of it takes place in Ceremonial Hall, which has like a lot of very detailed artwork in there. And so I just gave it to Greg, who was our artist, and I was like, just look through this and figure out the perspectives and what you want to do with it. So it ended up being pretty detailed. And so like it actually looks really realistic. We always use real places and a lot of times historical figures too.
So Flashback LG says, it sounds interesting. What book are we talking about? We are talking about the Crusade of Dracula. It is a Kickstarter. You could find it in the link for it in the description of the video if you'd like to check it out. We were just kind of showing off some art out of it. There's the title of it right there. This is book 1 through 3. So you can get catch up if you haven't gotten previous issues, and this is the third and final book of this story arc, which is being kickstarted now. So if you're interested in it, it is a black and white horror book. I do have book 1 and 2 that I find them very interesting. I know black and white's not everybody's forte, but I really, truly do enjoy it. I mean, as being a fan of Vampirella and the old Warren magazines, I think it really holds true to the era. So definitely check it out. We'll be talking more about the book too. So if you want to stick around, thanks for joining in. And then John says, talk about the square size of the book.
Square size book. So the book takes place in 1916 to 1918, and I actually got. I wanted to see what the comic books look like then, because you never really hear about it. You hear about the Golden Age and the Silver Age and all that. This is pre-Golden Age. This is like the I think they call it the Platinum Age. Um, this is when comic books mostly were reprints from newspaper comic strips. So I went and found an old on eBay. I found an old Bringing Up Father comic from 1919, and I kind of based it a little bit around that. They were Couples in Leon, which was the biggest comic book publisher at the time in the United States. They did them at 10.5 by 10.5, or no, it was 10 by 10. And they had this weird square shape, and I went and looked through it. It's actually pretty inexpensive on eBay. I guess nobody really, really cares about Bringing Up Father comics, but yeah, you go through it, and they have this square format, and I was like, and I asked some, I'm in this comic book group of coworkers, and I said, is it weird if I do it in a square format, or is it better if I just leave it in the normal size and normal dimensions? And on the one hand, like, it's good to have a normal dimensions, because if you're a collector, it might not fit with everything else. But if you're doing this 8.5, so we ended up doing 8.5 by 8.5. It's the same ratio, but doing a 10.5 is just really, really expensive. So I went and did an 8.5, and so we made it square. And actually, here's book 2. So this is what it looks like. It's 8.5 by 8.5, so it's a little wider than a typical comic, but it's a little shorter. So we did that just to kind of make it feel like it's kind of an artifact and something kind of cool and different. So we ended up just going with that, because everybody said, I think it's just better to keep it as a square, and it's cool like that, because it's different. Like indie comics, you can do whatever you want. So,
well, and the thing is you're basing stuff, on the old day, and you're doing the old style horror comic. You're doing it black and white, so it's really cool too, because you're doing it in a different format. And people like. Is it because you were square? Get out of here, John.
Yeah, that was actually here's I have book 3 right here. Is the proof copy. This is the book 3 proof copy. So.
Well, it's cool because it's different, and I mean, I'm a collector of ash cans. Like, I love ash cans. I find some of the weirdest ones. Like last year, I found some that were from what was the name of it? I can't even think of the name of it, but it was a lot of the cons were canceled, and they were made for a con, so they ended up taking the ash can and they stamped the biohazard sign on it, and they put canceled. And I was like, that's really cool. And it was like $5. I was like, I got to add this to my collection.
Yeah.
Well, then, like, later that year, the book actually went on Kickstarter, and people were like, where did this book come from? And they're like, oh, there's this ash can, but good luck finding them. And I went, looked on eBay, and I couldn't find them anywhere. I was like, ooh, thank God I bought that when I did, because I love, the rareness of them. And I think there was only like 100 printed, but they're just really cool. Seeing because they're not colored usually. They're typically raw art. It's just something to give comic shops a glimpse of, hey, this is what our book's going to be about. This is the ash can edition. This is what it's going to be about. This is not fully colored or rendered. This is kind of a sketch edition to give you an idea what the story is going to be, to see if you want to order it. And a lot of them got thrown out, so finding some of these there are really rare, so it gives you something really cool to try to collect, because it is an odd sized comic. They are not fully rendered or colored, and it's the same thing with your book. You got a black and white book that's based on historical events. It is a horror comic, and it's a different size. You go back to the olden days style size. He said it definitely helps it stand out like a record album. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, at first I wasn't sure if I was going to find bags that were the right size. I ended up just going with magazine bags, and they're a little big, but it's better than nothing. I had some Golden Age size bags, but they got kind of hard to find. I actually eventually found some, but the Golden Age ones actually aren't the right size anyway, because they're not. Because the Golden Age books were about 7 and 7 3/4 inches, and this is 8.5. So it wasn't exactly the right size, but they do fit the magazine ones more or less. So.
Oh, there he is. We were taking bets on how long it'd be into the show before you showed up, stuff. So right at 26 minutes. Look who shows up. It's Mr. Stefan Papadopoulos Wilson, the man of the hour. What's going on, buddy? Hope you're doing well tonight. Hope you had a successful con at the New York Legendary Artist Con. I hope you guys had fun. So, here we go again. It crashed. Oh well, we showed off the art out of the book. That's all that matters. So as far as research goes, so that was something that you talked about. Why you're going to put off doing any more in the series is the research. How much research did you have to do book 1 through 3? I mean, how many days, years, months did you spend actually?
Yeah, it was about 2 years.
2 years. Wow.
Yeah, I used 2 books mainly. One was Dracula, Prince of Many Faces, and that was a true story of Dracula's life by some of the first Westerners who put it together. And then the other one was Thomas Edward Lawrence, his personal account of the Arab Revolt, and that's called 7 Pillars of Wisdom. And those were the main books. I also read a bunch of other stuff about the Arab Revolt and the Middle East campaign during World War I. Some books about the last days of the Ottoman Empire. There was another book called anyways, it was about how they figured out Dracula was an actual historical figure, and how they figured out that Bram Stoker became aware of his existence, and kind of uncover all the research that Bram Stoker did and connected that to their own research. And it's interesting. Like, I was talking about some of those 70s horror magazines, and they used Dracula a lot, and but they didn't really seem to understand what the real character was, what the real person was. So yeah, I think they were only sort of vaguely becoming aware that it was a real guy, and some of them, like one of the stories had him like being in the 17th century, which was like 200 years after he died. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting how that research for the past 50, 60 years has really developed. Because when people in the United Kingdom and the United States would read Dracula, they didn't realize it was a real person, not for a long time. And as it turns out, that Stoker actually used a lot of pretty accurate aspects of him, with at the same time changing a lot of other stuff.
So Steph said I did my research pulling stuff up, and he said Xenonite Titan 2 teaser, he gets trapped in a frozen live stream.
Yeah, maybe he should go into a refrigerator so he doesn't get destroyed. That would be that would be the same thing Indiana Jones did.
Yeah, at the beginning of Kingdom of Crystal Skull, when he hides inside the refrigerator on the nuclear test site.
Yeah, I grew up in the 80s, and we always thought there was going to be thermonuclear war, and we were always preparing for that. And if I'd have known, all I had to do was get in the refrigerator, it would have been so much easier.
Yeah, if only they made body-sized microwaves, since the microwaves are shielded against releasing the radiation, you could hide in the microwaves as well.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, growing up in the 80s, I'll never forget when I was a kid, we had all these conspiracy theories about, Russia bombing us, and all these people, nuking us and everything else. You see, as a kid, you grow up, watching World War II and World War I, and all these documentaries. And so here I am, I'm home alone. My parents are at work. Back when it was safe to leave your kids at home alone, you wouldn't go to jail and get them taken. I'm just chilling out in the summer, watching cartoons, Darkwing Duck's on, and all of a sudden the house starts shaking, and there's this loud explosion, and immediately I run and hide underneath the table. I'm like, oh my God, we're being bombed. And I hid under there for 25 minutes. And the funny thing is what it ended up being is a woodpecker pecked on the transformer outside of our house, and I guess it crossed uh, the connections across it, and it blew the transformer up. And so there was a bird like smoking on the ground,
Yeah.
and so like it completely knocked the power out, which made it so realistic for me because there's this explosion, the whole house shakes, the power goes
Yeah.
out. I just knew we were done for, and like the kitchen table's gonna protect me from
Yeah.
a bomb. But
Yeah. You're like,
I'll never forget that.
yeah, you're like, I saw War Games. I know how this goes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Wolverines, yeah, that's right, Red Dawn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man. So, growing up, you said you grew up in the 80s. What kind of stuff were you into growing up? Were you always into
Um,
horror or
no, I didn't get into horror until pretty old. My parents didn't let me watch stuff like that. I think it's because when I saw Gremlins when I was 6, I just freaked out. And that was in the days before PG-13. So you take kids to go see PG movies, and you think they'd be okay, but then the gremlin gets out of the fountain as a skeleton, and then it's freaked out forever. Um,
yeah.
but then I sort of in high school, when you could go and rent movies, and you finally had a driver's license. Um, I pretty much watched every Universal horror movie, and then also all the Godzilla movies, and that was my first kind of exposure. Aside from a coloring book I actually had when I was a kid, which is really funny that they would have a Universal Monsters coloring book, but that's when I first heard of them. I was like, I don't know who a Phantom of the Opera is, but I'm just gonna color them green. So and then I sort of got into horror role playing games and at the end of high school, beginning of college, and then I got into like Call of Cthulhu and stuff like that, and then I started reading the literature, and then I started just kind of studying the whole idea of horror, because to me, when I was writing all these little short stories when I was a kid, like I hadn't really tried horror because I thought it was kind of difficult to do, and it was a challenge for me to try to do horror. So I kind of studied up on how the best way to do it was, and read a lot of stuff about the genre and what are the tropes, and how to build tension and things like that. So I worked on that, kind of writing some short stories just for exercise, and I never really got out of it. And it's kind of ironic because wasn't really into horror when I was a kid. I was into superheroes and Masters of the Universe, and
Oh yeah.
Thundercats and all that stuff that you just like sit in front of the TV for hours and watch.
Oh man, you had Big Trouble in Little China, you had Willow, you had Conan
Oh
the
well, yeah,
Barbarian. Oh man, that was I don't know how many times I watched Willow. I think I watched it so many times because it was always on cable. It'd be Willow and Big Trouble in Little China back to back over
yeah,
and over again.
yeah,
And it's like now you go and watch those movies, and you're like, man, these were so cheesy, but they were good. They were so good. And I'm still waiting to find out if we're ever going to get that Willow TV series that they keep talking about. I'm really stoked about that, and I'm worried at the same time that they're going to screw it up. But yeah, that's where it was at. He-Man, all that stuff, and like you mentioned, back when you would go to the movie store, kids these days will never understand, Blockbuster having the unlimited pass where you could just go in and rent 300 movies in 1 month, and no matter if you rented 5 or 300, it was like $30. So if you had a lot of downtime during the summer, you could really knock out some movies and do some research.
yeah, yeah. It was always a group activity too. You get everybody together, go pick out some movies. Go to 7-Eleven and get a gigantic Slurpee for no reason, and like just in the last couple of years of high school, and watch movies. I mean, I had a friend who literally found a bunch of VHS tapes on the side of the road, and he was like, "Let's watch all this stuff." Like, I don't know what any of that is, but well, we're gonna watch it. And then we'd spend several days just trying to get through all of it. Just trying to figure out like what did somebody decide they wanted to leave on the side of the road.
Were they that bad, or did they just fly out of the back of
um,
the truck and they're going to be
it
looking for
was
these?
it was it was like it was the first anime I think I've ever seen. It was like Princess Mononoke and some other stuff I don't remember. But yeah, it was like, in those days, like, I saw somebody recently said like, oh, when you were in high school, what, when you were in high school, did you get put fun of for liking anime? I said nobody knew about anime when I was in high school. Like we sort of like started getting into it at the end of high school. We sort of became aware of its existence, and saw some of it on VHS, but like really that was it. Most people in the United States like didn't know what anime was.
Well, no, back in the day when we were growing up, it was, if you liked comic books or if you liked anime, you were a weirdo. If you liked Dungeons and Dragons, you were a weirdo.
Yeah,
And it's like, kids these days, everybody's a weeb, or everybody, as they call them, or that they're into comic books, and a lot of it's because of the Marvel movies and the DC movies and stuff like that. But, back in the day, you go to a con and it'd be like, 50 people there. And, now you go and it's like, 2,000 people. And you're like, holy shit, when I was a kid, I would have never have dreamed there was this many people that would be into comic books or into cosplay, and cosplay was never as big as it is
yeah,
now. Or
yeah.
even seeing a girl at a comic con.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. And not only was that stuff something you could get beat up for, but like just even the concept of enjoying learning, like it's like, oh, you like to read, so what's wrong with you? Uh,
Nerd.
yeah. Because I remember, like if it was like if you ever admitted to actually enjoying one of your classes, it was like you were dead. Like, it's like, oh yeah, that's a good teacher. Wait, what did you say?
Yeah, or either that or you cashed in really well because you could sell homework, and then pay for all those video games and comic books that you partake in. And
Yeah,
everybody would be like, "Oh man, I didn't do my assignment last night. Can you help me with this?" Well, I think it'll cost you a 5 or a 10, or
yeah, yeah,
nerd before it was cool. That's right. The actual nerd
yeah,
before it
yeah,
was cool.
yeah.
See, Steph knows
More
all about that because
when you
he
could
used
get
to be into Dungeons and Dragons.
when you could get beat up for it. Yeah.
So, what were some of your favorite comic books? So you mentioned earlier that you were into the superhero comics. So what were some of your favorite superhero characters?
Yeah. So I started reading World's Finest comics. Was the first thing I read. Superman and Batman, because I only knew those characters from the Super Friends, and then you see them in the comic book, which you could get at any convenience store, but yeah, you can't anymore. But you'd see them and you'd pick it up and just see what Superman and Batman are doing. Then I kind of read action comics for a little bit, starting with the Ambush Bug stuff, and then I got into Batman Detective Comics. Then Justice League. Mostly DC stuff in those days. And then the whole thing happened with the Death of Superman, Nightfall, Emerald Twilight, like all that stuff. It was right before the bubble burst, all those events, Zero Hour, Armageddon 2001, but yeah, that was the kind of stuff I started with. I kind of branched out later into some other things. So right now, I'm mostly reading stuff that I back on Kickstarter since I'm backing so much stuff there.
That's pretty much how I am. I mean, I still get my Vampirella books because there's some pretty sweet covers out there. But I've really, I used to be big into Punisher, and they just kind of tanked Punisher. They just keep rebooting the series, and they've gotten really, really bad. I don't even remember the last time I read a good one, so I quit backing those. I was into Wolverine, a lot of the Wolverine story arcs, and then those have kind of gotten, it's just gotten to the point they've rewrote and they've rewrote and they've rewrote so many different stories and started out with number ones again, and it's just like I got to bow out. And, getting into the indies, there's just so many great indie books out there, and I think last year with COVID and the crash of, Marvel and DC, that, a lot more people have become knowing of indie comics and how great they are. Because they're like, oh, I can't get anything else right now. I guess I'll back this book. It's a little more expensive than what I'm used to buying, but I'll give it a shot. And then like, holy crap, these books are really good. And so now, the indie movement has really picked up again, which is awesome. It's great because there's a lot of great indie creators out there. There's several big ones that have always, done well on Kickstarter, but more and more people are starting to find some of these, down under, these, behind the scenes creators with these small books, and they're like, hey, you guys should check this stuff out. And Netflix has a lot to thank for that too. Bringing out some of these series into TV shows, or Amazon Prime, with Invincible, and then you've got Lock and Key and all these other ones. See, Steph said, I got to go back on in a bit. Good seeing you, Joseph. Yeah, I see how it is. You jump on and make fun of me, but you don't give Joseph any shit. What kind of hotel is this? Come into my house? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, John Westhoff has called me a square, though, so I guess that counts. I'm not going to argue with that, though. I think that's probably true.
Yeah, it's all good. Joseph is cool. Oh, what?
Yeah, no, that has nothing to do with me. That's all about you.
What? What now, Steph? Yeah, that's it. Yeah, look, there he is, Steph Wilson. Love songs from Cape Cod. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's an art breaker, for sure. I got to make up a new one, Steph. I'm going to make you Harbor Master. I think this is the get up I'm going to have you in.
Yeah, we need like a website that's just for like the ease of making Steph Wilson memes. Like that would be awesome.
Yeah, Steph Swap. Instead of Face Swap, we'll have Steph Swap. With you just go on there and you just like, I need a pirate themed Steph meme. And it's just like, puts them on there with Johnny Depp with a jar of dirt. I've got a jar of dirt.
Yeah, exactly.
But instead of a jar of dirt, it's got like a circle template in his hand.
Yeah.
An OnlyFans site. Oh no, man, they're getting ready to shut that down. There's gonna be a lot of people going back and being servers and working at gas stations and stuff again. And everybody's gonna know when OnlyFans is gonna shut down, because there's gonna be a huge surge on Facebook Marketplace of in-home stripper pole kits. So we're gonna see a decline in the price of steel and aluminum.
Yeah.
There's gonna be an abundance of it.
Yeah. We're gonna see Steph looking for work. So.
Yeah, dang it, man. And no wonder I haven't seen him on so many covers lately. That's what it is. Now we know.
Yeah.
So as far as we talked about what kind of comics and stuff were you in. What were some of your favorite cartoons and movies growing up?
I think I mentioned Masters Universe before. That is a show that is completely unwatchable if you watch it now. Like the original one, like, wow, that's cool. Like you got a tan and everything, But yeah, it's terrible. But I loved that when I was a kid. And then when I got a little older, I watched stuff like the Beetlejuice cartoon, the Little Shop of Horror cartoon, Darkwing Duck. Those things. And then Batman the Animated Series just came out in '92. And then, of course, you had the follow-on Superman and Justice League cartoons. Those are really cool.
Did you ever get into Gargoyles or anything like that?
Yeah, I did watch Gargoyles. Yeah. I watched Gargoyles. I watched Ghostbusters cartoon. I watched both the real and the non-real Ghostbusters. And then I think there was like a Ghostbusters second Ghostbusters series where they replaced a bunch of people. I don't know, but yeah, it was the same kind of stuff everybody was watching. You had like a lineup of stuff. I did watch the Flash TV show when it was on, and Lois and Clark when that was on. It was amazing, and you see the Flash TV show, like I can't believe they made a superhero TV show. Like, what's with that? Like a live action show. That was like a huge novelty then.
Yeah, now you hop on Netflix and there's like 600 of them. It's like, they got the Punisher, Daredevil, the Flash, Oh man, there's so many you can't even list them all, and I'm like, which one of these do I want to watch? You know, and then you got
Yeah,
Disney. You get on there, you got Loki, and
yeah. I'm old enough to remember when if I did not watch anything, something that wasn't superhero, like I felt incredibly guilty. You know, like I'd be like, oh man, if I don't watch this Daredevil movie, they might not make any other superhero movies. You know, um, but now it's like, I don't have time for all that. Like I'm way behind the Marvel stuff, and like I keep telling people, like, yeah, I haven't seen No Way Home, I haven't seen Far From Home yet, and I haven't seen Venom yet, and people are like, what's wrong with you? Why haven't seen that? I'm like, there's too
I'm
much stuff,
busy.
you know.
Yeah. No, I get it. I run a 2 nights a week. I do the podcast, and I work, a 50, 60 hour in a week job. And then I'm, promoting book one, working on book two, working on an anthology series. Now I'm doing the charity auctions for CB4K, and trying to promote that and do that stuff. I'm packaging and shipping,
Yeah,
and it's like, people don't realize in indie comics, it's a lot of work. You got to do all the promoting, you got to do all of the, the packaging and the sending, you got to do all the ordering, and you've got to do all the proofing. I found that out the hard way. I ordered, well, I mean, the book proof that I got in, whatever I did with it, it had 2 errors in it. Even though the digital proof was correct, I get it in and they collated it wrong. So the art came after the first page of the chapter instead of before the first page of the chapter for the end of the previous chapter. And I'm like, hey, this isn't right. Thank God I ordered a proof, because they had to sent me, you know, 300 pounds of books that were not
yeah,
printed properly. So then I get the hardcovers in, and I looked at a few of them, and I was like, oh yeah, they're good. I opened one 5-pack. Well, then I'm fulfilling for the Kickstarter, and I open up another pack, and I'm like flipping through it, looking at it, because the hardcovers turned out really good. And I get the CB Zane's art, and it comes after the end of, it comes at the end of the last chapter, and it was like second to last page, CB's art, last page, and I was like, oh no, so I had to go through all of the hardcovers. I'm like, I should have checked all
yeah,
of them, and I didn't. And then it ended up being there was 8 that was wrong. So luckily, it wasn't a huge deal. It was just 8 of them,
yeah,
and so I was able to fulfill. But there's just so much work that's entailed. Staying on top of these
yeah,
people. I ordered stuff and it was like 2 months, and I'm like, hey, where's my stuff at? Oh, we should be getting an email soon that it's shipping. I'm like, I was told it was going to be here last month. What's going on here? So it's a lot of work. It is. It's a lot of work doing all this stuff. So, you don't get a lot of time to watch shows anymore. And it sucks because, I like playing
yeah,
video games and stuff, but, you're a dad too. And that's the other thing with me. You try to spend time outside of, doing your promoting, doing your writing, your checking on artwork, checking with the artist,
yeah,
production, shipping, and all that. You spend all that extra time that you can, with your kids, playing games with them, watching shows with them, watching the stuff that they like.
yeah,
Lord help us.
yeah. I know. Yeah,
I mean,
my kids, I can't get them to watch much that isn't animated, and if even if it is animated, like if they think that it might not be for kids for like 1 second, they're like, I'm not watching this. So
well, so a funny show that I got my kids to watch was The Goonies. I'm like, they have to watch the show, because when I was a kid, I watched The Goonies. I don't know how many times. And so, like, if you don't remember the opening scene, that guy pretends to hang himself in jail to escape from jail. And my wife's sitting over there, she never really had seen the Goonies until after, I had met her, and I was like, oh, you've never seen the Goonies? You got to watch this. And so, fast forward, 15 years later, we've got kids and we're watching it, and she sees that scene, and I look over and she's just looking at me. Her eyes are
yeah,
this big around.
yeah,
She's like, oh my God, you're letting our kids watch this? I'm like, it's PG,
yeah.
That
PG,
was back when the rating system was a little different. But I'm like, he really doesn't die. I'm like, just keep watching. It's all good.
yeah. There's always like one scene, at least one scene, and you're like, oh, I forgot about this one.
Yeah.
And it makes it completely inappropriate for kids. Um, yeah, I actually I went to go to the Fathom event for the 35th anniversary of Star Trek 4, and it was the first time I've been in a theater in almost 2 years, and I showed my kids the trailer, and I said, you guys want to go see this with me? And my son was like, "No, absolutely not. It looks terrible." I said, "Okay, fine." And my daughters were like, "Okay, let's go." So I said, "All right." And they said, "You know, the jokes are funny." I said, "Okay, that's good." So I ended up taking all three of them anyway. And there's like I kind of forgot how slow it was at the beginning of this. There's a lot of slowness at the beginning, and I just saw I was losing the kids. Like, you know, my
Their
son,
eyes are glossing
my
over.
son, like literally starts crying, and I'm like, oh man, like, and we didn't make it to the whole movie, but you know, eventually, like they came home, and you know, one of my daughters was like, let's finish watching the movie, and I was like, well, you know, you guys didn't want to stay, like you left. And I was like, yeah, but I want to know what happens to the whales, you know. So, so, so we came home, and you know, we finished watching it. So I thought that was progress, you know.
Yeah. So you were into Star Trek growing up.
I didn't get into Star Trek until probably I started watching Next Generation in syndication, like after it was over. I think the first episode I saw was actually the final episode of the series, and then I was like, oh, this seems kind of interesting. And then when I was in college, I kind of they were always showing them, and I was watching them all the time. And you know, then I started watching Deep Space Nine, and then I watched original series, animated series, and all that. I kind of been trying to catch up on, and I still haven't seen all of Voyager. Yeah, and I've seen the more recent movies and the recent shows, Picard and Lower Decks, and um, Discovery. Uh, but yeah, I'm not totally up on all of my Star Trek stuff.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I grew up, watching with my grandpa. He would always watch Knight Rider, Hulk, and the original Star Trek movies and the original Star Trek TV show. And so that was when I first got into Star Trek. So growing up, I was always into the Next Generation. I thought the Next Generation was awesome. Granted, I love Star Wars too, but they didn't have a TV show. They had, the
Right.
original three. And so you only watch them over and over so many times. But, I just love the idea of Star Trek. I've always been big into sci-fi, and, I love the idea behind Q, and, just the different races that they had, and below the space battles were always great, even though they're unrealistic because you can't hear
Yeah.
explosions in space. At least we're told that. We don't really know because we've never been to space.
Yeah.
Oh my
Well,
God! Don't get the crowd in an argument over this
yeah.
again.
Not
Jesus.
until you blow something up in space yourself. Then
Yeah. So it literally turned into an argument one day. I mentioned the fact, that how much I love the new Star Trek because at the beginning, when they're firing the torpedoes into space, you can hear the explosions, you see them inside the ship, and then when the camera angle goes outside and you're floating along with the torpedo, it's just dead silence. And I was like, that's so awesome. It's the first
yeah.
movie that's really put into that much in the limelight of there's no sound in space. And then it reeled out of control in the comments. Well, how do you know you can't hear explosions in space? And I'm like, well, it's because that's what science
Yeah.
tells us. So yeah, we're not going there again. So I never said that.
Yeah,
But
I actually really love the message of Star Trek, and
yeah,
you know, people complain now. They say, "Oh, well, it's not as pure as it used to be," because you know there's humans fighting with each other, and there's you know not everything is all bright and shiny. But you know, I think that actually makes the message even more important. Um, you know, when you show that things aren't really as good as they seem, the idea that there are people striving towards those things and they may not succeed is something that we really can relate to. You know, how we have certain ideals that we don't always live up to them. But the idea that we're always sort of striving to get better, striving to become more tolerant and more accepting, you know, striving for better equality. I think those are things that are very important. And you know, when I see people say like, oh, you know, Picard was like so grim dark or whatever, and it's like I didn't see that at all. You know, and you know, what I really saw was an entire season that was about a man who was devoted to his friend who had passed away, Data. You know, um, and that was really the beginning and the ending of that really sort of tied up together the whole season. And we saw, you know, really how devoted Picard was to Data and his memory, and I think that was really the message of that series. And I didn't really see that it was cynical. Some people said it was cynical, but Star Trek is anything but cynical, I think.
So we're rolling in on 55 minutes. I know I told you I would keep it to an hour. So what I want to do is I'm going to give you the full screen. I'm going to drop the link in here for everyone to go check out the Crusade of Dracula. I had a great time chatting with you again as usual. Guys, please check this series out. It's definitely great. I love what I see so far. I'm going to back issue 3. We just have had some issues with the wreck that happened, but I'm excited for issue 3. Give me just a second to pull StreamYard back up because my computer crashed. But I'm going to give you the full screen here. If you want to tell everybody, give them the elevator pitch. Let them know what Crusade of Dracula is all about. Tell them where they can find you. And I'll pop that link in there.
Okay. So the Crusade of Dracula is based on the premise of what if Lawrence of Arabia worked for Dracula. And all of his work during the Arab Revolt was as a result of his agency on the behalf of Dracula in a secret supernatural war that was using the Allies as a proxy on one side and the Ottomans on the other. So you can find the Kickstarter at www.theorderofdracula.com. You can find us on Facebook, Heresy Studios LLC. Find us on the web, heresystudiosllc.com. Instagram, Heresy Studios LLC Comics. And Twitter, Heresy Studios LL. So go check it out. It's live until September 14th.
Don't worry, I'm still here. I'm just pulling that link up. I'm gonna hit. You're like, hey, I'm done, man. Jeez. So thanks a lot for being on with me tonight. I'm gonna pop that. See, Heresy Studios LLC. I'm gonna pop that link in there for the website. Guys, definitely go check this out. Give it a look. See. Like I said, I would have showed off more of the art, but it wouldn't load in because our internet is having issues again from the last storm that we had. Hopefully they'll get that resolved because my live streams have been suffering because of it. So there is the link for the Kickstarter for everyone on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. And there's the link for his website there. Thanks so much for spending some time with us, Joseph. I appreciate it. Thanks for chatting, and I hope to see you again soon for your next book.
Me too. See you.
Have a good night.
You too.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for being here tonight. Thanks for checking out Joseph's book, The Crusade of Dracula 1 through 3. Like I said before, if you missed out on issues 1 and 2, those are available on the Kickstarter. They're an 8.5 by 8.5 square book, as John was joking about earlier. They're a square book. It is black and white, like the old time horror books are, and it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of history and research that went into these books. Like I mentioned before, there's some really cool stuff where Dracula changes into a cat instead of a bat, and just different things from the average lore that we hear about on the regular with some of the newer stuff that's out. So please check out the project. Please back it. Please share it out if you can't back it. If you can throw $1 at it, please throw $1 because this allows people that follow you on Kickstarter to see the project who might else not see the project. But you just backing it for $1 could tell hundreds of people that this project exists and is out there and can help get Joseph over the mark and get this thing funded. So thanks so much for being here and supporting the podcast. Thanks for supporting indie creators. And for those of you that watch back, we appreciate you as well. Guys, please check out the Comic Books for Kids auction charity page. Please check out the stuff that's left over for August. September stuff should be rolling in starting tomorrow and Wednesday. I'm going to start getting that stuff set up and I'll be posting about that come Wednesday. I'm super excited. Hopefully we can raise another $2,000 for Comic Books for Kids in September and just keep those boxes rolling out to all those sick kids in hospitals nationwide. And as always, check out www.xenonanitetitan.com/shop. You can find that in the link at Rust Explode Studios, Books with Heart. You can get CB4K apparel and all that good stuff there, as well as book 1 for Xenon Anti-Titan. So guys, please check it out. Please join me again on Tuesday. I'll have Peter Retro Palmiotti on, and we'll be chatting with him on Tuesday and about, showing off some of his line art and his artwork. So thanks so much for being here. You guys have a great week, and I look forward to seeing you on Tuesday. As always, this is Russ Explode Studios with projects that will blow your mind. You guys have a great night and a great